This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show with me, Samson Ladi Ayenini. And this morning, my take is titled, Stop Hoping MPs Won't Pass Yet Another Joke as Asset Declaration Law. Mr. Domelovo. The Auditor General is appalled at Ghana's Asset Declaration Law, describing it as, quote, a joke, unquote, but is excited a new one will be effective at serving the desired purpose, fighting corruption among public office holders. I'm sure you have heard and read about his threat to expose all who have not declared their assets after assuming office, as the group of civil society organizations that met the president this week charged him to keep his election campaign promise to make his declared assets public. Well, Daniel Domelovo seems to be unaware that MPs were supposed to have passed the new law, Conduct of Public Officers Act, together with Right to Information Act in 2015. They did not. And they argued, among others, that making public their assets will expose them to armed robbery. Jesus, just don't come yet. In June 2015, I presented a paper to leaders in the anti-corruption campaign under the auspices of the Ghana Integrity Initiative and the Anti-Corruption Coalition. This is what I wrote about the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act 1998, which requires one to submit a sealed envelope to the Auditor General, who has no right to open and check the contents. Only Shraj may open it when there is a controversy upon lawful orders to do so. This, without any equivocation, is the single most useless piece of legislation passed either by a lousy bundle of legislators or self-serving legislators seeking by law a right to conceal where they are envisaged by Chapter 24 of the Constitution to disclose their assets before assuming a public office. This sad development renders this law needless, as the assets, if declared, are not ever known to members of the public who are expected to report of new acquisitions, that's undeclared assets, and which may have been procured through acts of corruption. I recommended that assets declared must be verified and publicized, else there is no need for the declaration. This law, without any equivocation, I say again, represents the single most inconsistent piece of legislation in our statute books. It ironically preserved a public officer's right to conceal where they are to disclose. It may be in accordance with Article 287 of the 1992 Constitution, which invites any person who alleges that a public officer has contravened a provision of the Act to make a report or complaint. It nevertheless retrogressively still makes the asset declared and kept with the Auditor General confidential information, which must be kept as such if there is no verification by the custodian and publication of such assets. For example, in the Gazette, how would members of the public get to know what is declared in order to complain, if at all? The principles of transparency and accountability require nothing less than both verification by the Auditor General when the envelope is handed to him and publication of the declared assets of public officers if the intended mischief the law seeks to cure is to be achieved. A review of the regime under the Conduct of Public Officers Act without a mandatory requirement of verification and publication will therefore mark such backward progress in a democracy as such declarations were gazetted even under Ghana's Provisional National Defense Council PNDC military regime. In a military regime, not a democracy, the assets were published. The Constitution Review Commission summarized the collective will of Ghanaians in desiring, as it found, quote, though the Constitution attempts to curb the menace of corruption through the asset declaration regime, the absence of compulsion and the lack of transparency in the exercise defeats the very purpose of the regime, unquote. There must be sustained advocacy to scrap this regime for a compulsory and transparent one. The ongoing amendment process still needs critical advocacy and for all to police the process to avoid a reproduction of yet another self-serving, worthless piece of paper called a legislation. That's my take this morning.